Okay, so we have written till here, right? Let me execute this. So yesterday we have debugged, we learnt debugging, right? How the step into, how the step over, and how step out and all will work. So let it get executed. And today we will see some other run modes. Okay, so it's executed, right? So it will just execute whatever it is. Then I'm just opening the repository, whatever we are using. Okay, so now if you see that, what are the properties that we are using for button? It's name property, and for link we are using text and HTML tag. Why it has taken only these properties? Why not other properties? Because when you say here link, we have specified HTML tag and text property as mandatory. So the same properties have been taken here, right? Then what I will do is, so let me just close the repository, and I'm just going to object identification and link what I've done, I just changed the name of the, I changed the properties, the identification properties, right, in the object identification. So what does it mean? What is the change that I have made here? So next time onwards, whenever you are adding the object, don't take the HTML tag and consider text and name properties. So now whatever the change that I have made in object identification, right, that change will be applicable only for the objects which I add from now. Now let's say, for example, I'm just adding one link, and you can see the text and name property it is adding. So whatever the change that I made in object identification, those changes are happening here. But if you look at the existing link, whatever is already there, then the change is not applied on that particular object to the existing objects. So that's what happens whenever you do the change in object identification settings. Those changes are applicable only for the objects which you add from now. But if there are a lot of objects already added to the repository, then the object identification changes will not be applicable. Okay? Then now what I will do is, which one I am taking here? I am running the script in update run mode. First let me do one thing. Let me log out. Chrome UFT has got little problem in launching the Chrome. So once it is closed, immediately it waits 5-10 seconds to launch the browser. So that's the reason I'm just closing it manually. Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm running the script in update run mode. Okay. So what it's saying here, update test object description. Then forget about remaining two things. I will come back to this. So let it get execute. It will run normally. Okay. So how the normal run executes, whenever I click on run, how it executes, even update run mode also, it executes in the same way. So let it click on plants and then let it create the plant. But what's the problem here? Why? Why the login is being failed? Login was not successful, but why we wrote pass there? Why it says EDT home search doesn't exist? It's there, right? It's identifying. What could be the reason? We supposed to write fail there. We just did copy paste, I guess. Okay, so oops. Wait. I supposed to run in update run mode. Okay, let it be for now. Just to see the verification. This time it's working, right? Okay. It's creating the plant. Fine. What I'm doing is just let me run in update run mode and see what happens. Did we run in update run mode? Okay. So when I run in update run mode, it's not working. But when I run in normal mode, it's working fine. Let's see the reason. View stun result, it's failed. The reason is login to the application user. Say login was not successful. Let me take to this. What are the properties we are using here? Our name is str, then resources, tools, object identification, web, it is web edit, right? We are using name property only. Then why it is not being identified? Let me do one thing. Here we say the browser type, where it is environment variable, right? Let us see if it is a problem with the browser or what I will do is here I'm running in Internet Explorer. So just let me run the piece of code. Why it is not identifying in update run mode? Wait, I got the problem. It may not work again. It's not working. Let it be. Just wait. It's not working in update run mode, right? Let me go to tools, object identification, and for web, I'll say the browser. Wait for a while. The page, no properties, right? Okay. Let us see now. Let us say this time it will identify or not. Basically what it does is update run mode, whatever the changes we made in object identification window, right? Those changes will be automatically reflected in the repository. Okay, so whatever the objects it's coming across, then first it will go to the object identification setting, see what are the properties that we are using currently or how we have set. If you see, it's working now. Is it working? Okay, let it be. We'll check again. So whatever the changes that we made to the object identification in the object identification window, so those changes will be reflecting or as soon as you run in update run mode, it will take the latest object identification setting, then those changes will be applied on the objects which are added to the repository during runtime. So the object identification settings, that whatever you do, that's for new objects, but if you want to apply those object identification settings on the existing objects also, you just do the settings and then run in update run mode. Once you run in update run mode, what happens is, okay, it will take the object identification setting and then current object identification setting, and it will take the current properties of the object whatever are stored in repository. It will take the properties and see whether it is using same properties or not, same set of properties. In case if the properties are different from object identification setting to the properties which we are using in repository, if both are different, then it will take the object identification setting and then it will do the change accordingly. That's what the update run mode is, but still it is not working. What could be the reason here? Is it just login is passed this time, but application is not navigated to plants page. The reason because we say here this web element is not exist. This is what we are verifying, right? Class is page type, we are using same. HTML tag is h1, inner text is what it is here, plants only, but if you see that there is a semicolon coming up, but in Chrome semicolon was not coming, right? So this was the reason. So in Chrome plants, just it was plants, but in Internet Explorer there is a semicolon coming. You know what I have done there? I just placed one dot. What is mean by dot? I'm using regular expression here. So dot means for any character in the regular expression. So colon is a special character, right? But whenever the special character comes, don't place the special character directly in the regular expression, because it may consider that as a pattern, not as a value. So that's the reason whenever you get a special character in the value, property value, so replace that with a dot, or probably if you want to match with a colon, backward slash colon. But again, why I used question mark here, why I just grouped it and question mark? The reason because in Chrome that is not coming, but in Internet Explorer it is coming. So that is optional for me. So if it is there, the colon is there, take it. If the colon is not there, then don't take it. So I'm making that as an optional, maybe there or may not be there. That's what I'm trying to say here. Anyway, clicking on plants is executed here, right? If you look at the plants now, see what was the property earlier, it was using text and HTML tag. But now if you see that, it's updated with name, text and name. So HTML tag property was removed. Why it is removed and why it is using these two properties now? Because we have updated in object identification setting, and then the same setting is applied on the object here. So whenever you do the object identification setting, and if you want to apply these settings on the existing objects whatever are already added, instead of opening object repository and doing one by one, what you can do is simply run your script in update run mode. When you run your script in update run mode, then it will not update on all the objects. If you see that remaining objects might not be updated, only this object is updated. The reason why it is updated, because only this is the object which it came across. Whatever the objects that script came across, only on these objects. When I say I have 200 objects in object repository, and when I run in update run mode, it will not apply on all 200 objects. Okay, those changes will not be applied on all 200 objects. But in my script, whatever the script that I have executed, so in that script I have used only 15 to 20 objects. Only on those 15 to 20 objects, it will do the change. Remaining objects no. So whatever the objects that script came across, only these objects will be updated with the latest object identification setting. If you remember, for the browser, we were using name property. I use a regular expression. But if you see that name property is removed. You know why name property is removed? Why it is not using? The reason because, okay, in the object identification setting, I removed the name property as well. Right? So if you see that even in the browser also, the name property has been removed. So it is updated as per the object identification setting. But this is one of the advantage, because I do need to go one by one object, and then I do need to spy to take the property under. So it will automatically update in the repository. But the disadvantage is here. Okay. Now where we store these objects, all this plans or browser, all those in shared repository. But if you look at that object where it is right now, where it is, I have to be confident. You should say loud. Where it is now? Local repository. How can you know it is local? You can see that repository there. It's in local. But we store these objects in a shared repository, right? But what happens is whenever update run mode updates the objects as per the latest object identification setting, then those updates will not be directly made in shared repository. What it is it creates an instance in the local repository, and it will update the properties and values in local repository. This is the drawback of it. So when you are using shared repository, then it is not applicable. Okay, so it will add all the objects to the local repository. Whatever the objects that it is updating, then it will add to the local repository. Okay, so ultimately what I'm trying to say is, when you run the scripts in update run mode, then all the objects whatever we have used in the script, not in the descriptive programming, remember, only the objects which added to the repository. Okay, so all the objects which we have used in the script, then those objects will be updated with as per the latest object identification settings. In case if the objects are stored in shared repository, then those objects will be created again in local repository and then will be updated. So since if you want to use only shared repository, then no, update run mode cannot update directly in shared repository. That's a drawback, and that's a limitation that what we have here. And when you run in update run mode, so those will be updated only in local repository. Okay, remember that. Got? Okay, so this is what update run mode is. Now what I'm doing is I'm just deleting object from local repository. Automatically the object from shared repository will be loaded back. It just create one more instance in local repository. That's it. Okay, so this is what normally update run mode. So if there's somebody ask an interview, then how this can be explained is update run mode will be used whenever there is any change in the object identification setting, and if we need to update those settings on existing objects also, then instead of going by one object, then if we run in update run mode, all the objects whatever we have stored in the script and the objects which are stored in repository, then so those objects will be automatically updated with latest object identification setting. Then you can also add the drawback, but okay, generally it updates in even though we have stored the objects in shared repository, but those objects will be updated or will be added to the local repository again, and then it changes will be applicable on local repository, not on the shared repository. Okay, then there is one more run mode we have seen. What is that? Maintenance run mode, right? Another run mode what we have used is maintenance run mode. Okay, now let me do one thing. What is mean by maintenance run mode here? Okay, what I am doing is okay, I'm just adding some objects to the repository here. new is already there, right? New we have already added, fine. So I just added few of the objects. Save it. Save is already added. Why it is adding one more time? Okay, because of the properties changed. Fine. So save is being identified. So I can use the same save button. Okay. So now what I will do is opus dot link cases dot click, opus dot web button new dot click. We need to click on new button. Then opus dot web edit of case 3 means contact name. Then dot set. Then some junk value I am setting now. We are not doing any much validation there. So case 4 dot set, then opus dot web edit case 14, nothing but what is the case 14 here? Is it subject? Okay, whatever it is. Status is a web list there. Web edit. Opus dot web edit. Just everywhere I'm just adding some junk text, nothing much. Okay, so the purpose is little different here, not to create a case or anything. Say web list 7 dot select of 2 opus dot btn, sorry, web button, save dot click. Now assume that this is the piece of code that I have written. Okay, so this is the piece of code that I have written. Now if I run the script, it may execute, it will execute fine. But now what I am doing is what I have done here, I changed the property. Okay, but assume when I added the object to the repository, this is how the properties were earlier. But so when I added the objects, don't consider that I am changing the property here, but when I added the object to the repository, this is how the properties were taken. Later then the properties were changed in the application. Then if I run the script normally, if I run the scripts normally, let's see what happens. So it clicked on cases link and it clicks on new link, and then it has to enter into contact name, right? So that is a case 3 actually. Okay, let's see whether it will enter or not. So let it get execute. So what it says? It says that cannot identify the object. Then I need to stop, I need to go to the repository and I need to understand what properties, that object, what properties we are using in repository, and what are the property values are stored in the repository, what are the new values in the application, and then do the changes accordingly. But instead of that, what I'll do is, what I am doing here, maintenance run mode, and let's see what happens this time. New, and let's say this time the contact name it has to enter, right? Now instead of throwing an error, what happened here? It is giving a message, or it's giving a window saying that the step failed, the object was not found. Then it says that which object is not found. The object is webEdit case 3 is not found in the application or not identified. Then if you look at the options what it is saying, then click the point button and point the object in the application. Or the second option it is giving is add a to-do comment before the step as a reminder to fix this step. Then, so what you're doing is click on point here, and I'm just pointing the object, whatever the object which was not identified, I'm just pointing it. Now, if you look at that, then it is clearly saying, okay, what is the original value? That means what is the value which is stored in the repository, and what is the new value in the application. Then if you look at this below options, what it is doing, update the object property and values and rerun the step again, or update the name property with regular expression, because earlier it was case, now it is case 3. Make this 3 as an optional. So tomorrow if it go back to the original value whatever is there, then it will still work when you add the regular expression. Then when you add the regular expression, it will be like this. Okay, and add the object as a new object. That means don't update the existing object properties and add it as a new object and then update the step. If you say that, then it will create one more step in the application, and old step will be commented out automatically. Keep the original object properties, just don't update the property or don't update the step or anything, just add a comment there and skip that step, so that later I can update. But now what I am doing is I am selecting the second option, update the name property with regular expression and rerun the step. Then click on OK. You can see that step is executed and one more object has been changed, right? Then again let's see what happens. What I have done here, during runtime only I updated the property values, but when I run in normal mode, then if any of the object is not identified, it will throw the error to us saying that so-and-so object is not identified. But when you run in maintenance run mode, instead of throwing the error, saying object is not identified, then it will just give the information which object is not identified. Then you can update the object properties. You can point the object, whatever the object is not identified in the application, you can point that object during runtime only, and you can update the object properties with the latest values. Okay, during runtime only you can do that. Or say for example, now this step is not identified, right? This step is optional for me, I don't want to update right now, but what I will do is, instead of updating, I will just add a comment there for whatever the step is not executing now. I don't want to update the property now. What I will do, I will just add a comment and then I will continue. So that means that comment whatever I add, then that should be a kind of reminder for me. Then what I will do is, instead of updating the step this time, I'm just adding the comment. Click on add and then say name property of case 15 object has been changed, or whatever the comment that you want to add. Please update. is updated. Say okay. Now it just continues. Then it says that one object property was updated, one comment was added. Now click on finish. Okay, so this, whatever you are running in update run mode and whatever you are running in maintenance run mode, those will not be considered as a result, application results. Those two run modes, update and maintenance run mode, generally why we use is, okay, update run mode will be used to update the object identification setting. Now let's say for example, when 3 people are working in automation and one person has got one setting, one object identification setting, second person has got some object identification setting, third person has got object identification setting. Already 10-15 scripts are already written, you know, in each of the system. And later we realized that okay, so we are not using appropriate object identification setting there, and we should have some common settings. So in such case what we do, okay, we define a standard there. Okay, don't use these properties and these properties for object identification. For all the objects, okay, these are the properties. We give the latest list. That means we do the change in between. Now as per the latest standard, you all 3 will update the object identification setting there. Then whatever the object identification setting that you do, then when you add new objects to the repository, then that is fine. It will take the latest object identification setting. But what about existing objects? Whatever the objects are already added, because you already wrote some of the scripts, right? When you wrote some of the scripts, the objects were already added. Then what happened to them? What happens? Again, you have to go manually and do the update. Instead of doing that, then all the existing scripts, whatever you have written, run in update run mode. When you run in when you run in update run mode, what happens is it will automatically update with latest object identification setting. So you don't need to bother about which object I need to update and how to update and all, or which saves a lot of time for you. So that's what update run mode is. Whenever there is any change in object identification setting, and if you want to apply that object identification setting on the existing objects, then run in update mode. But remember that those objects will be created in local repository again and then will be updated. But in case if the objects are already in local repository, it will update those objects directly. But in case if the objects are there in shared repository, those objects will be added to the local and then will be updated. Okay. Similarly here, maintenance run mode. So maintenance run mode will be used. Now let's say for example, okay, I have written a lot of scripts already and today I got a release. Then in this release there are a lot of customizations and there were some changes in the objects. Not in one object, probably a lot of objects have been updated with some properties. Okay. Then it's difficult for me to understand which object is changed, which object is changed, because there could be a lot of objects, right? So if one object or 2 objects updated, then I can go and update manually. But when there are a lot of objects updated, then it's little difficult for me to identify. So instead of doing it manually, what I will do is I will just as soon as I get doubt that a lot of object properties have been changed, I run the script in maintenance run mode. When you run the script in maintenance run mode, what happens is whenever any step is executed, if the object is not identified in the application, it won't throw the error to you. Instead of throwing the error, it will give the information. Okay, so this object is not identified. Then you can point the object in the application. And when you point the object in the application, then it will say, okay, these are the properties which I am using right now, and these are the new values for these properties. Then do you want to update this property as per the latest value, or you just want to add a comment now and then continue? So later you can see those comments and then you can do the change accordingly. Now if you see that I have updated for one object property and for other object I just added the comment. If you see that the comment is added for case 15, so to do name property. Then if you go to the object repository, for which object, case 3, right? If you see that it's added, I selected add the regular expression also, right? Then if you see that object property has been updated. But the drawback here is maintenance run mode will not work on the objects which are added to the shared repository. That's the reason I added to local repository here. Okay, so if the objects are added in shared repository, you can just add the comments for those steps. Later you can go and update. And how can you see all these comments? Again, when I have written 1000 lines of code in my script, it will be difficult for me to see all those comments, right? Whatever I have added for, I might be added for 6 to 7 objects, but I can't go with line by line and see the comments. Instead of that, what you can do is go to view. Can you see something called tasks here? And just open tasks. Can you see the line number and then the comment there? So I think in the beginning only I told you what is mean by task pane. So if you have any task list, okay, to-do list. So but comment should be added like this: to do, then comment, then only it will come here. But if you see, these are normal comments I made and those are not displayed here. Only whatever I said to do. That means the to do means there is something need to be done there. So whenever you add any to do task, then that will be displayed in tasks pane. That's the use of tasks pane actually. Okay. So if you have any things need to be said, now let's say for example, he is writing some scripts, he has written some piece of code, then he reviewed. Okay. So if script obviously have to be reviewed. Assume that he is some senior and he is writing the script. And then once he has written the script completely, then generally we don't directly make it as ready status. What it has to be done, then okay, after once the scripts are written, then that has to be reviewed by the team member or maybe by the senior. Now assume that the senior is reviewing. Then while he is reviewing, he found there are certain things need to be changed or any step need to be updated or any step need to be modified, okay, or need to be removed. Then what you can do, instead of writing it in a separate document or composing an email with all the steps and all, wherever he found, then you can say what I'll do is here I'll just write to do, okay, change the hard coded, it has to be to do colon and then change the hard coded value to a parameter. So don't use a hard coded value. Then let's say that, can you see that has come here, but normal comment won't come. Whatever the comment which started with to do, then that will come. So now when the script is reviewed, then whatever the points that we observed or whatever the steps need to be updated, just at that particular step I will just add the comment and then I will save. Then what he will communicate, then okay, so we have reviewed the script, and to see the review comments or to view the updates and all, then look at the tasks pane, open the task pane, and you will see what and all the steps need to be updated with the clear comments. You got what I am saying here? So this is the use of tasks pane. That's what to do means for. Okay, if the scripts are being reviewed and if you want to clearly intimate which steps need to be updated, you can add the comments like that, to do comment, and then obviously that will be updated in tasks. So that will be shown in tasks pane. Okay. So now when you run the scripts in maintenance run mode, this is what happens exactly. Okay. So what we did exactly, like some of the object properties were changed, but when you run the scripts in normal mode, then in case if any of the object is not identified, we get the error message saying that so and so objects are not identified properly. But when you run the scripts in maintenance run mode, then in case if the object properties have been changed, instead of throwing the error, then it gives the information to you. Yeah, this is the object is not identified. Then it will ask you, okay, do you want to update the object now, or are you going to add a comment and then update your object later? Then if you say that, okay, no, I will update the object later, then you just add a comment saying, okay, so and so object has been changed and please update. Then later you can look at the tasks here and then you can update accordingly once the execution is completed. Or if you say that no, okay, do it right now. Okay, so later again it will be other work for me, do it right now. Then if you say do it right now, then you have to point the object. As soon as you point the object, then it will give you, okay, these are the properties you are using right now, and these are the property values, and this is the property value which is changed. Then do you want to update the property value? And if you want to update the property value, you want to take the direct value or use the regular expression accordingly based on the new change that you have got. If you select that and click on continue, then it will update the property automatically in object repository, and then it will continue with the execution. But the drawback advantage is, in case if the object properties have been changed, then you can easily identify and you can easily locate them. So you can add the comments and then you can update, or you can directly update during runtime only. But the disadvantage is, okay, when the objects are added to the object repository, then you will not be able to update the properties, because that works only with local repository. But you are allowed to add the comment there. In case if any of the object not identified, you can add the comment and then you can continue with the script. So this is also a debugging technique. Ultimately, why we use the debugging and all? Because when the scripts are not working fine, or when we need to do some changes, or when we need to understand, then we need to debug. Then we step into, step over and step out to observe line by line, and to add or to watch all the variables, or to observe all the variables and all, or to understand the logics whatever we have written, and where we are coming out of the loop, and why it is coming out of the loop, and which variable is not updating properly, which variable is taking appropriate value, how the loop iteration is continuing, which condition is being satisfied or which condition is not satisfied, what are the logical mistakes we did. Or to understand all this, generally we do the debugging, step into, step over and step out, okay, to debug functions, one by one function, all those. But this maintenance run mode and update run mode is used at object level. In case if any of the objects have been changed, or if any case any of the objects need to be updated with the new set of properties, or objects are, in case object properties are changed, and then if you want to update those properties during runtime, then you use this run mode, maintenance and update mode. You got what I'm saying? Then we also seen the breakpoint yesterday. So instead of running, or instead of debugging from first step directly, then what we did, we added the breakpoint at certain line, okay, 10th line or 15th line or some line of code. Then we ran the script. So as soon as it identifies or it finds the breakpoint at any line, it will stop the execution there. From there we can start debugging, or from there we can re-execute again if you want, right? Then so there is the one more run modes I told. What is that? Normal mode and fast mode. Then the difference between normal mode and fast mode is here. Then I don't need this anymore. Okay, that is only to understand update run mode and maintenance run mode. I have added those objects because we don't use local repository at all. So if I remove the browser from local repository, then it will automatically load from shared repository. Okay, fine then. Now what I'm doing is, so far when you run the script, so we ran multiple times, right? Not only just once. If you observe or not, then for every line, whatever it was, it was executing, you could see that yellow cursor there. Every line was highlighted with yellow, right? Yellow background. Then, so what I'm doing is, here go to run options, test runs. Then I'm selecting fast mode. Then if you run the code, let it start executing. It takes little time. I should have closed this browser. Okay, anyway, it closes automatically, right? If you look at this, there is no yellow cursor displayed at any line here, right? So this is the change between normal mode and fast mode. When you run the scripts in normal mode, every line whatever is being executed, then for at every line there will be an yellow cursor will be displayed. Okay, there will be an yellow cursor displayed, so that it is a clear indication to the user saying that this is the line which is being executed currently. But when you don't get that yellow line, right, then it will be little difficult for us to understand which line is being executed currently and all. But once the scripts are stabilized, that means okay, my scripts are working fine and all, then I don't need to observe which line is being executed. I will be obviously validating the end result. I don't need to observe line by line there. Once the scripts are stabilized, when I do it in batch mode and all. So in such cases, we select the fast mode. But when we are designing the script, that means when the scripts are still in designing mode, the scripts are not yet stabilized, then when you are running the scripts, I might need to observe the line by line. Okay, see which line is being not working, which line is executing, which line is taking more time, then I need to observe line by line. In such cases, instead of running in fast mode, what you do, you run in normal mode, so that every line which is being executed, then an yellow, that line will be highlighted with yellow background, so that is an indication to you say that yeah, this line is executing right now, and you can see which line is taking time, which line is taking not much time. Okay, and also there is one more thing here. Whenever you run in normal mode, right, whenever you run in normal mode, so what I'm doing is here, delay in each step execution by how many milliseconds? 2000. 2000 milliseconds means 2 seconds. Let's see what happens now. Let it start executing. Earlier script was going little fast, right, in terms of execution. You can see between every step it is taking some time. So that's what the delay time means. Okay, when you add the delay time, right, what happens is for every step whatever it is executing, for every step it takes 2 seconds, or you can add, if you add 5000 milliseconds in between every step, not even just okay, second step, third step. For every step it will take, before it goes to the next step, it will wait for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, depends on the time, how much time that you have given, and then it will move to the next step. So when this will be used, again, if you say pressing on step into is taking a lot of time for me, I mean it's taking too much of effort, then okay, I will just run the script and I will be observing line by line. So it has to give me sufficient time to observe between every step. Then what you do, then you run the script in normal mode and then add the delay time, maybe 3 seconds or 4 seconds like that, so that for every step whatever you add, for every step, you execute, then it will give 4 seconds in between, so that you can easily observe what is happening on the. So this is what normal mode and fast mode. So when your scripts are in debugging status, or when the scripts are in designing status, you run the scripts in normal mode so that you can observe clearly what is happening. But when the scripts are completely stabilized, that means I have debugged enough and those scripts are tested and working fine, then now what I will do, okay, now whenever the release comes, I just use those scripts for execution only to validate the application. I don't need to debug anymore. Run the scripts in fast mode. You got? Then one more thing here, what you need to remember is we ran the scripts in update mode and maintenance run mode, right? Remember that there is a relation between fast mode, normal fast modes, and update and maintenance run mode. Then what I am doing is here, I have selected fast mode. Then What it says there? Maintenance run mode cannot run in fast mode. That means when your maintenance or update run modes can be used only when you have selected normal mode in the options. When you have selected fast mode in the options, then you will not be able to use maintenance and update run modes. Both cannot be used. And one more thing is, these two will work only when you have installed something called Microsoft Script Debugger. Okay, there is an utility or there is a DLL, there is a library, it is Microsoft Script Debugger. But you don't need to worry while installing the tool. When you install the tool in your system, and then Script Debugger will be automatically installed, but the precondition is you must have connected to the net. When you have connected to the internet, then it will automatically, first it will check whether the Script Debugger is installed in the system or not. When the Script Debugger is not installed in the system, then it will automatically download it and gets installed. But when you have not connected to the internet during installation, then probably this may not get installed, so you can reinstall again after some time. You got what I'm saying here? Then that's what installation testing also we do. When we do the installation testing, it has to identify all the prerequisites and then should provide the options for us to download whatever is required and all, right? Okay. So Script Debugger is important here. So, but when you install the tool, it will automatically get installed. In case if it is not installed, then that's fine. We can install again. We can get it from Microsoft website and then we can download it. Okay. So this is what the debugging means for. So why we use debugging here? Because we have written a lot of code there and we have written too many logics and functions, and while running the script, we thought that the logics what we have written is right, and we thought that the variables, all variables we have used, or the data whatever we have given is right. Okay, because while writing you will be having too much of content, because you might be too much very expert in the script, but you do the silly mistakes also. Even though you are expert, you have too much of experience, but we still do some silly mistakes, like some logical mistakes, very simple, but those creates a lot of confusion. If you observed yesterday, then you see just a small mistake that we did, just was a mistake in the variable. We just misspelled the variable. How much time it took for us? It created a lot of confusion. We had to re-execute 5 to 6 times, and then it took nearly 20 to 25 minutes of time for us. Right? But how did we rectify that? By looking at the script, if you observe, then by looking at the script, we could not even identify it. That's what happens. If you just observe the script, everything looks perfect. Then you can't understand which is problem. But when you go with line by line, then we can observe. That's the importance of debugging. And not only that, to only fix the issues, tomorrow what happens is, okay, you join in a project. Okay, so when you join in a project, you can't expect every time say, okay, we'll be writing the scripts. That means, okay, there is no automation and we are starting with automation, or our job is just writing the scripts. But automation might be already existing in the application. Okay, so automation might be already existing, and then, but there are a lot of issues in the scripts. There were some issues. Then 50% of the projects like this. Okay, automation might be already there, but so maybe they might have created those scripts on older version. Then later, they are not maintaining those scripts because maybe automation expert is left or something. Okay, then you join in a project, and then probably you need to fix all those issues. But writing the new script is easy. Writing the test scripts for new test case and all is easy. But if somebody gives you the existing scripts and asks you to fix the issues, then that's where the difficulty will come. Lot of problem, because if you want to fix the issues on existing scripts, first you need to understand what approach they have followed, and what data files they have followed, and how the data is being loaded, how the objects are being identified, or what kind of settings that they have done here, the preconditions. There are many things that will come into the picture. Okay, so to understand all of them, what you need to do, if you go line by line, then you can easily understand the dependency between the steps, and how the data is being retrieved, and how the objects are being located, right, and what and all the configurations that they have done and all. You can easily observe, but you need patience for this. That just can't, you can't do it in 10 minutes or 15 minutes. You need to take a lot of time. Okay, but observe line by line. But if you observe 2-3 scripts, then you can understand the approach that what they are following. The remaining scripts will be might be following the same approach, so that it will be easy for you to fix the issues. Okay, so when you say automation, debugging is one of the key thing. That writing the scripts, remember, generally when we do the estimation, right, to write the script we give 1 hour time estimation, but to debug we give 2 hours extra. So 3 hours time for script designing. The reason, because I'm already claiming that I'm expert as in scripting. So it don't take much time for me to write the script. If you see that, to write the script, how much time it took? With explanation and all, it took maybe for us 1 hour time to write all the scripts. Right? Not even 1 hour it took. Only for writing, how much time? Of just 10 to 15 minutes of time it took to write overall script. But to make it working, right, and to fix all those issues, it took too much of time for us, almost doubled from script writing. So this is where the debugging and all comes into the picture. So all these methods, whatever I told for debugging and all, are important. You can never say that I don't know. You can never be silent when the question comes on these methods, because these are the methods almost more than writing you use. Okay, so if you say get arrow property, whenever the situation comes we use that get arrow property method. But the debugging, not only for that, everywhere on daily basis, even in execution phase, use debugging, because while executing some of the scripts may fail, you have to rectify them. Because of some changes it may fail. Okay, during writing the scripts, again, to make sure that the scripts work fine, you debug. So that is a daily activity for you, debugging. So script designing may not be daily activity, because in the execution phase you may not write the script, but debugging is a daily activity. If you observe that we did not use all the techniques once, depending upon the situation we have to use one by one, but we'll make sure that we use almost all. Right? So you can never say, I don't know. You should never say I don't know about any of this question in the debugging for any of the method. At the same time, you should never be silent when the question comes on this. Okay? Because if you claim that, if you say 1.5 years in automation or 2 years in automation, 2 years you have in debugging, 2 years experience in debugging also. So when you're debugging, almost all the methods we utilize, and these methods, whatever I told now, with irrespective of the tool version, all the methods are there in 11, all the methods were there in 10, all the methods are there in 11.5, all the methods are there in 12, all the methods are there in 12.02 as well. So whatever the version you claim that you are working on or you worked on, these methods are common debugging methods. Okay, clear? Fine. So we'll stop here today. Then with this we are almost done with the major concepts of EFT, and from tomorrow what we'll do is same thing, whatever we are doing the implementation now, still okay, we need to implement some of the synchronizations and error handling and all. That means some implementation is required to understand scripting much better. So for a couple of days we are still okay, we identified few scenarios, right? We will write. So right now whatever we are writing is for less complex scenarios, but then as I told, for setup and all, so we get more complex logics and all, we do the implementation on those things, so that you can clearly observe which technique or which method can be used at which situation. Okay, fine, clear, right, what I told?